In this tutorial, we'll take you through the steps in creating this social media post design. Create a canvas with the following size. As you can see, we've already imported all our files over here. So I will hide all of them so that we can start creating the background. So let's start with creating our solid color for the background with the following Xcode. Okay. Let's import our background image. So this is our background image. Let's increase the size so that it fills the full canvas. Okay. Let's add a Gaussian blur to the image. Let's make it a radius of 12.5. Let's change the blend mode to soft light. Let's create an empty layer with a lighted color. This time this is the Xcode for the lights. On the sides, the top left corner. Let's change the blend mode to screen. Let's add a bit of Gaussian blur to it. Okay, let's create another empty layer. This time we're creating a lighting on the sides. Let's change the blend mode to multiply. Let's darken it a bit using the hue and the settings by pressing Ctrl U on your keyboard. Let's darken the saturation a bit. Yeah, I think it's fine at this point. Let's create another empty layer. This time let's create on the base. Let's add a lighting on the base. Okay, let's undo the light that we've added at the base. Let's undo it. Let's rather add a noise to it by creating a solid color with the following Xcode. 66666. Let's add a noise to the background, but first of all, let's rasterize the layer. Let's apply the layer mask, filter, add noise of 25 with the following settings. Let's change the blend mode to soft light. Let's zoom in a bit to see the texture that we've added to the canvas. As you can see, it's all been textured. We added our noise, so it's having a fine texture now. At this point, let's group the layers that we currently have right from the solid color to the texture. Let's group it and name it as our background. At this point, what we will do next is to introduce our photos for the jollof rice. Let's add that for another one. This time let's bring this one up. Let's select both and move it down a bit. Let's resize it a bit. Let's add a bit of shadows to it. Zoom in a bit to see what we have currently. Let's create a bit of a shadows around it. Starting from the base, let's introduce an empty layer. So by selecting the brush tool, let's change the look of our brush. Let's zoom up a bit, out a bit. Let's resize, let's change the size of our brush. Make sure that your caps lock is unactivated so that we can see the side of our brush. As you can see, let's bump it up a bit. Let's change the color of our brush to black. Okay, now let's duplicate it. Let's change the blend mode of 1 to multiply, the other to overlay. With the multiply, let's add a bit of a Gaussian blur to it. Okay, so at this point, this is what we have. Let's select both, group it, and rename it as shadows. Let's reduce it a bit. Let's zoom out to see what we have. I think we can add a bit of a max so that we fix what we have over here using the brush tool again. But this time let's change how the brush looks. Now let's resize it a bit and clean the sides. Fine. Okay, let's accept it. Let's first of all rasterize. Let's convert it to smart objects in the meantime. Okay, but let's change it to overlay a bit so that we have all our compacted, or have all our shadows compacted into one. Let's duplicate it for the other side. Let's duplicate it this time, and this time. Let's zoom it a bit. Let's change it a bit so that, let's see what we have for both. Okay, at this point, let's group all our layers and name it as Jollof. Let's introduce some text here. Let's create an empty layer for the text. On top, the text should be on this side, the top left corner. Let's add our text. Let's add our text. Let's change it to Montserrat font. Let's use bold. Let's reduce the size of our text and zoom in a bit. Let's change the color to white. Let's reduce the size a bit. Let's duplicate it twice. Let's duplicate it twice. Let's change the fill to extra bold. Let's do that for this one. Let's change also to extra bold. Let's zoom in a bit to align our text. Okay. Let's duplicate the text again. Let's change the color to red. Let's use a signature font for this. Changing it by changing it to addictive regular. Let's move it up on top like this. Now let's select both. Reset, put it down a bit at this point. Okay. We'll be duplicating a lot of font at this point. Let's duplicate another one here. This time let's change it to a line a bit. Okay, let's undo what it did earlier on. Let's zoom in a bit. Therefore, let's align our text to see what we type in. Let's position it here. Let's continue with the type. Let's resize the type. Let's position it here. Let's select everything we have. Let's change it to semi-bold. Let's change all the font to semi-bold. Let's go to the options for the text and reduce the spacing in between the sentences. Okay. Now let's highlight some key fonts over here and make it bold. Let's highlight some key fonts and make it extra bold. Extra bold. Zoom up a bit. Let's also create a square on top. First of all, let's select everything we have for the text. But before we do that, let's first of all create a rectangle on top. with a fill of white with no stroke. Let's press A on our keyboard to select for the direct selection tool. For the direct selection tool, let's select one part of the rectangle, one point of the rectangle, and push it up a bit. Good. Let's select it again. This time let's reduce the size. Let's bring it down. Let's reduce the size. With the control, let's turn it a bit this side. Press and hold the control on your keyboard and turn one of the point to this side. Let's duplicate it. First of all, let's speed it up. Let's duplicate it a bit. Okay, let's hide one for the meantime. Sorry. We're just playing around with the shape to see what works better. Just push this one down a bit to this point. Okay, let's duplicate it again. This time change it to black. Bring the black down beneath the white one. Let's put it down a bit. Let's zoom in. Press Control on the Control T on the keyboard. Let's change the styling a bit by pressing this button, go in here and change it to arc. Now let's reduce the bend. Okay, now let's add a bit of a blur to it. First of all, it requests us to either change into a smart object or raster. Let's choose rasterize. Now let's reduce the radius a bit. 4 is fine. Maybe you can do it. Let's press Ctrl key to reduce the shadows on the sides. Okay, I think it's good on the side. Let's zoom in. I think let's duplicate it for the other one. Let's duplicate it for the other one. Let's push it here. Just push it down a bit. Okay. I think you can delete one of the rectangles. Yes. Let's create a circle again. Okay. That we can change the color. Let's see the options that we have. Let's change it to this color. Just push it up a bit here, down a bit here. Okay. Now let's introduce another font by duplicating this one. Say GH for that. Just push it up here. Maybe we can reduce the size a bit. Okay, let's duplicate it again and name that as NJ. NJ. We'll be changing the color later on, but let's first of all finish with all the fonts that we need to add. Like select everything, duplicate it, and change here to VS as in versus. Maybe we can change it to extra bold. Okay, let's reposition it into the circle. Let's zoom in a bit. Let's increase the size. Okay, I think this side is all good. Let's add a bit of shadow to the circle. Let's add a bit of shadow to the circle. So let's reduce the spread. Let's see what we have. Let's play around with it. Let's reduce the distance, if I may say. Maybe let's increase the opacity a bit. Let's play around with it on this side. Let's reduce the size and let's push up the opacity a bit. 71 is a bit okay. Let's move on. First of all, let's change the NJ on Nigeria in this instance to green, as the primary color of their flag is green. I think this green is a bit awkward. Yeah, this one is, I think, fair. Let's zoom in a bit to see. Yeah, we can work with this. Okay, so there are more stuffs to be added. Let's see the other files that we have beneath. Let's move it up. Okay, so we have let's move the Nigerian flag to the side and that of the Ghana flag, sorry, to the other side. Let's undo what we did earlier on, and push it this side. Okay, so currently what we are left now is add a bit of some vapor to the food. Let's do that by introducing our vapor image. Let's place it right on top of one of the food. Let's change the blend mode to screen to take off the black background. Let's move it up a bit. Let's duplicate it to the other food also. Nice. So what we left now, I think we can, let's position this text here a bit so that it sits right here. Good. Okay, so what we can do now is to introduce another text for the info on the base right here. Let's select everything right from this text and delete it. Say over here, say delivery. Let's duplicate it again. Let's duplicate it and change it to locate as here address. Location. Let's make sure it is centered. Let's do that for the delivery. Let's make sure it's also centered. Let's select both and group it, rename it as info. Now let's move the vapor, all the vapor layers into the group we've renamed as Jollof. Yeah, let's move it into the Jollof folder. Let's hide it and see. Also, let's do that for the flags too. Let's move it all up into the Jollof folder. Okay, so all you have left now is to add other stuff that we've not added. If you look at the, let's add other elements to it too, because there are a lot of stuff we need to add. Let's move the tomatoes. Let's select all the tomatoes beneath here and move it here. Let's move it on top of all the layers. Okay, now let's reposition them one after the other. Let's move this one to the side. Let's move this one to the side. Right down here. Let's move this one. Let's select it. Let's move it up here. Let's zoom. Let's zoom into that side a bit. I think we need to select all the text that we have here and move it down. Let's move all the text. Let's select them one after the other and move them down. Yeah. I think let's rather select the tomatoes on top and move it up a bit. Yeah, I think it works better this way. I think we can do something better to the font here. Let's see what we have. Let's make it bold instead of, let's say, yeah, bold. Make these ones medium. Let's make these ones medium. Okay, let's make them more medium. Let's transform this to bold instead of extra bold. Yeah. Okay, let's zoom out to see what we have currently. Okay, first of all, let's convert all the tomatoes to, okay, they are already in their, they are already been converted to, they are already in the convert shape, or should I say, they've already been converted to smart objects, if I should say. So now let's add a bit of a motion blur to it on all the tomatoes. Okay, let's change it a bit to 45. Let's see. Let's reduce it to 35. Let's see. Let's copy all the motion blur onto the other tomatoes. Let's duplicate it onto the other tomatoes. Cool. Now let's add some more. Let's go back to the folder here. I think there's one more element we've not added. That's the basil leaf. Let's move it up here. Let's reduce the size a bit. I think we need to duplicate one of the fonts here. Put it up a bit. And rename it. That's Jollof rice. This time around, let's change the color code to this. The yellow. Let's see, let's try the yellow. Let's see. Okay, let's try this color. Let's see, let's play around with it a bit. Let's increase the size a bit. Okay, let's push it out a bit here. Maybe perhaps let's also change the, let's make sure it's added to the background layers. Yeah, let's change the blend mode. Let's see what we have. Let's select it. Let's change the blend mode to color bin. Let's see, color bin. Okay, it's fine. Let's increase it a bit. Let's change the position of the basil leaf here. Let's move the jollof rice one down a bit. Yeah, now let's resize the size of the leaf down. Yeah, okay, I think it's nice at this point. Let's see if we can, so now let's clean up our layers. Let's clean up all the layers. Let's clean up all the layers. I think let's select everything we have here. 4, Let's clean up all the layers. Let's clean up all the layers. Let's select everything here and rename it as the banner. I think there are other stuff that if not added. Let's add this text, yeah, to the banner. Yeah, right here. Let's hide and see. Okay, there's another one we've not added. This one. Now let's rename it as banner. Yeah, I think we can, as you can see, you can do that later on your own, just to make sure that this tutorial is not elongated, that it's kept at a minimum of 30 minutes. So you can do that on your own. But first of all, before we do that, let's add some adjustment to it. Let's start with the selective color. Let's push up the reds. Let's also add a photo filter. Color. Let's play the preserve luminous and see. I think let's leave it without the let's add the previous preserve luminosity to it, and let's see what we have. I think it's fine at this point. Let's make sure it is checked. Let's move it here. Okay, now let's add some final color lookup to it of 3 strip, but this time let's reduce the 4 to 50. Well, let's say 35 is fine. So at the end of this tutorial, this is what we ended up with. Thanks for joining us, and join us in our next tutorial. Bye.